This interview is being brought to you by BabyFightGear.com. Baby Fight Gear is dedicated to providing a single source for children's mixed martial arts. Inspired clothing, the softer side of tough sports. Our clothing is available in sizes newborn to toddler. This is Late Night MMA, and we roll on. Let's bring in Tim Boetsch. How's it going, man?
I'm doing good. Getting back into training and getting through that initial soreness, but other than that, I'm doing really well.
Good stuff, man. I hear you just came back from Canada, a little fishing trip.
Yeah, I had a nice week up there, catching a bunch of walleye and some pike and some bass, and just relaxing, taking that last little bit of time before getting real serious here.
Now, whereabouts in Canada do you go fishing?
This trip we go up to Bob's Lake up in Ontario and spend a week up there, and then in the summer I also go up and fish the St. Lawrence River for a little bit, and I spend quite a bit of time north of the border. I really enjoy it up there.
Very nice. Obviously, you probably know the first question I'm going to ask you. Let's just talk a little bit about this Weidman fight.
Yeah, I'm real excited for it. Definitely the fight I want to be in. I feel like it's a fight to decide the #1 contender. So very excited that this is going to happen December 29th.
Okay, man. So this is 100% confirmed? They ain't going to do a switcheroo or anything, or the contract signed?
Yeah, everything's signed. We're ready to rock and roll, and as long as nobody gets hurt, we're going to be, as long as he doesn't get hurt, we'll be fighting December 29th. I'll fight hurt. I don't care. I'll do whatever it takes to get in there and beat this guy.
What do you think of all the injuries right now in the sport, man? Obviously the fighters can't be totally to blame, but it's just kind of weird that this insurance policy comes in, and now just like tons of guys are getting injured.
I don't even think it's really the insurance policy. I think it's more guys are concerned about fighting and not being 100%, but I've only had 1 or 2 fights as a professional where I was 100%. We're always banged up from training, and there's always something hurting, but a lot of the fighters are to the point where they understand that if they don't put on a top-notch performance, their career could be in trouble, so they want to go in there feeling 100% and just feeling fully confident in their abilities and their physical abilities.
Yeah, for sure, man. I had George Roop on the show a couple weeks back, and he's on a 2-fight losing streak, so his next fight is really important. And he pulled out of the show in Calgary that you were on there just basically because of all the bumps and bruises, and he knows the next fight he's got to win. So I wonder how much of that's really going on.
Honestly, I think there's a lot more of that out there than people realize, there has been talk about the insurance policy and guys taking advantage of that, but I honestly don't think that's the case. Certainly there is some overtraining issues to deal with, and some of the guys do have significant injuries that they're dealing with, but I think for the most part you're running into a lot of fighters that are really worried, they're on the cusp, but like you said, if they lose one more fight, they might be done. So, they want to go in there and give themselves the best chance, and if they feel that their body's not up to par or where it should be, then, they're backing out of fights.
On the weekend, Michael Bisping got the win over Brian Stann, and surprisingly enough, Joe Rogan started talking about him being the #1 contender.
Yeah, I had to laugh when I was watching that. I'm very happy for Michael. It was a good win for him, but that was the first top 10 guy that he's ever beaten. I don't think that earns you the #1 spot by any means. I think Chris Weidman has a great run going. He's undefeated. He's beat a couple top 10 level guys, and he's certainly more deserving of a shot of being the #1 contender than Michael Bisping. And I think if you just look at our resumes, I also fall into a higher category than Michael Bisping as far as opponents that we've beaten, and just where we fall in line. Brian Stann and Michael Bisping both lost to Chael Sonnen. So how do either of those guys rate higher than Chris Weidman or myself? I find that very hard to understand. So I think people who know, and the reality of it, the truth of it is the #1 contender is going to be decided on December 29th when Chris Weidman and I fight.
Yeah, man, that's going to be a sick fight. I'm pumped for that. And we're still like 3 months out, but that's going to be pretty awesome.
Yes,
Now,
it
one
is.
last thing about this man before we get on to other topics. Weidman's still kind of obsessed over this Anderson-Silva fight. He's still talking about it. Do you find that disrespectful, or do you think that might just bite him in the ass in the end?
You got to earn that fight. He's definitely got a great win streak going, but you know, I'm standing right there in front of him, and I can certainly plead my case that hey, I deserve a shot at Anderson Silva. I shouldn't be fighting Chris
Sure.
Weidman. I've beat higher level opponents than he has, but I'm not complaining. I know that this fight will determine who the number one contender is, and I'm willing to take this fight, and I'm not looking past Chris Weidman. I understand how it works. And I'm actually looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to proving that I'm the number one guy to go take Anderson's belt from him.
We haven't talked in probably a month and a half. A lot has happened. There was the UFC 151 cancellation. UFC 152 just went down, so we've all moved past it. But I want to get your opinion on the whole situation. What did you think when you found out the card was being canceled and all that other stuff went down?
Honestly, I felt bad for the other fighters on the card. My good friend Charlie Brenneman was originally supposed to be on there, and fortunately he got another fight relatively quickly, and that didn't turn out so well for him as we saw the other night.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of fighters out there, myself included, that really rely on getting that paycheck on the date of the fight. There's a lot of guys with a lot of bills to pay. A lot of us have families we need to support. So to see a card get wiped out completely, that's very hard on a lot of fighters.
Just yesterday, buddy and training partner Karos Fedor, he kind of got a screw job. What did you think about that? Yeah.
Same thing. That's the same situation. A lot of these fighters really, like I said, they rely on those fights to pay the bills, and if they don't happen, it puts us in a bad spot. We're out there training hard, laying out a lot of money for our training, and there's a lot that goes into it that maybe a lot of MMA fans and people out there don't understand. There's a lot of expenses related to training and traveling and training partners and specific diets that we have to stick to during training camp to make sure our weight's coming down to where it should be, and just being able to perform at the highest levels. There's other stuff you have to do to take care of your body, as far as going and getting therapeutic massages and seeing chiropractors to get your spine straightened out after a hard grappling session. I do all of those things, and I know a lot of my teammates do as well. So at the end of the day, at the end of a hard, long training camp, not being able to go and get a paycheck for all your efforts and all your expenses, it can put you in a real bad way.
Anderson Silva didn't really seem interested in fighting anyone at the middleweight division, but he sure as hell seemed interested in fighting Stephan Bonner. What'd you make of that?
I think it's just an avoidance tactic. He made the argument that a Chris Weidman fight wasn't a big enough pay-per-view, and then all of a sudden he's fighting Bonner. And you ask any MMA fan in the world, which is a better fight, there's way more hype around Weidman. So the argument that that's not a big enough pay-per-view is totally not legit. Honestly, I think it's an avoidance tactic. He's looking to take this fight and then take another 9 months off and just prolong his time as champion. And he really, I honestly believe he hears the footsteps coming. He hears Weidman and I coming, knocking on the door, and he knows he's in trouble.
The division that you used to be part of, Jon Jones is the champ. Do you see anyone beating him anytime soon?
He's a tough dude, and he showed it by battling through that armbar. A lot of guys with taps. He's definitely got the will to win in him, and he's just a super high level athlete, super athletic ability, and just gifted all around. So it's going to be a while before anybody takes him out.
Okay, man, we were talking about the injuries a little earlier. Do you think Zuffa has spread themselves a little too thin here?
Honestly, there's a lot of fighters out there, and I think it's hard to put a finger on exactly what's going on, but there's enough fighters involved in the sport that there should be a real easy way to put on a good show all the time. So I don't think they're spreading themselves too thin, but something different needs to happen. I don't know the exact answer, but I think there's definitely the ability to put on a lot of good shows with the fighters that they have.
Yeah, now this UFC 155 card that you're on is just completely stacked. Have you seen the lineup?
I have not seen the entire lineup. As soon as I just heard that Chris and I were fighting, that's all I'm really worried about at this point.
It's just like, wow, like there's a lot of big names. So if someone gets injured on this, I'm sure it's going to be still a sick card. And you're saying there's no way you're going to be injured.
Even if I am injured, I'm still fighting.
Right, exactly. Okay, man, final question here. Before I let you go, last time I think we touched base on this a little bit. I'm not 100% sure, though. The Hector Lombard situation, he, after the fight, said that he was injured going into the fight. What'd you make of that?
I think it would have made sense if he had said it the day following the fight, but the fact that it came out, 2 months later?
Right.
I think that it loses some credibility when it gets to that point. And, honestly, I think he was just dealing with the big-time jitters. I didn't think he was going to, but he certainly wasn't himself that night. And honestly, I think I had a lot to do with that. I was not intimidated by the guy at all, and he knew that from the first time we bumped into each other backstage. I don't think he was used to that, and it worked out to my advantage.
Okay, man. Appreciate the time. Anything you'd like to promote or throw at your Twitter?
I just want to say big thanks to the fans and expect big things on the 29th. It's going to be a great fight, and it's going to determine who the true #1 contender to take that belt from Anderson is. And I'm really looking forward to putting on a good show.
Awesome, man. Thanks for the time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.